Elissa, we've talked about campaign reform before in this program, and I'd love to have you bring us up to date on where we are on that.
Okay. Well, as you know, because of some really malicious campaigns, local campaigns, the League decided to form a campaign reform committee to look at what we could do to help return civility to local elections. The committee really felt that after looking at these elections that it was independent expenditure committees, and I'll just call them IECs from now on, were really behind the funding and the barrage of hateful messages that were spewed out in campaign mailers in recent weeks before the election. I have an example. I brought what I received in the last election. This is just for 3 candidates.
Wow.
Look how many. I mean,
Yeah.
it's enormous.
And expensive.
And expensive. And expensive. Right. And funded by various kinds of organizations. This kind of, and a lot of it was deceptive. And most of the deceptive campaigning comes from independent expenditure committees. It's created and funded by them. And some people don't know what IECs mean, but they do know what the Swift Boat campaign was. And those are independent expenditure committees. As you know, they can spend whatever they want on behalf of the candidate, and they're accountable to no one.
And the candidate cannot manage
The candidate cannot manage them. The
Hands off
candidate, that's
completely.
right, candidate has to stay separate. We think that it really, deceptive campaigning hurts democracy. It suppresses voter turnout because after getting all of this, you look at it and you say, oh God, aren't there any good candidates? Are there really all
Or you're
crooks?
confused, too.
You're very confused.
Yeah.
It encourages emotional voting, but most importantly, it discourages qualified candidates for running for office
Sure,
because they don't want to become the victim of attacks. So we decided that what we would do first of all is to try to educate voters to be a little more discriminating in looking at all of these pieces. We are focusing first of all on voters in Central and Southern Marin because they're going to be voting in the healthcare district race, and we feel that that's going to be a contentious race. So our first outreach is this ad that was included in Marin Sanitary Services newsletter.
That's great.
That went out to, so here's the message, and on the back of that is a list of supporters. So this went out to 29,000 people in Central Marin. And we're very grateful.
We got a pretty good response for supporting this from various people in the county.
Yes,
It's a good,
yes,
great list
we did.
of
We did.
supporters, yeah.
And we're going to try to get more because what we're going to do is we're going to put these folks on the back, on their website. They're on the back of the mailer right now. We're going to put them on our website, and so we're going to see how many elected, not only elected officials, but community leaders.
Right.
I didn't get one of those in Mill Valley.
Well, you're not going to get one of those in Mill Valley, and so you're going to get one of these. Okay? We're going to mail this to frequent voters in Mill Valley, Sausalito, and Tiburon. Another 10,000 will go out. It's the same message saying, are you tired of misleading election materials filling your mailbox? And on the back of it, I want to tell you what it says. I'm going to read these so I make sure that I get it right. It asks voters to question brochures and flyers that contain personal attacks, that ridicule candidates, that contain statements that can't be verified, or contain scare tactics. And they also, we're also calling voters' attention to phone call polls, which in political language are called push polls. And what they do is they call voters and say, did you know that so-and-so committed a felony? Or if you knew that so-and-so committed a felony, would you vote yes? Would you vote for that person? So we're telling them to be aware of that as well. We also taped a 60-second public service announcement that contains the same message, and that's going to be sent to Bay Area television stations. So we're trying to get the message out. We'll be doing, hopefully, in the local papers will also carry our effort. The other thing that we've done is we've developed a list of suggestions that we have sent to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors is in the process of drafting an ordinance that would regulate independent expenditures as well as look at campaign contributions for their own races. we're not concerned about the campaign issue right now, but we are concerned about the independent expenditure committees. So some of the suggestions that we have made to them to try to make independent expenditure committees more transparent so people know who it is funding these messages. So we have suggested that include a requirement that IECs register immediately with the county as soon as they are formed, that they have a physical location, not just a P.O. box at Kinko's, which has happened in the past, that we have immediate online disclosure of any contribution over $100 that would go up on the county's website, that there is a disclosure on every one of these pieces, that there is a disclosure on the bottom that says who the major funders are. We think if people start seeing the same names popping up over and over again, they might start thinking that this is not a good deal. And the telephone polls, we feel they should be identified up front, who this candidate, who the candidate is, and who's funding it. We'd also like to see the county establish a citizens oversight committee that could monitor the materials and give a little more authority to the ordinance. It should include the Code of Fair Campaign Practices, which many candidates sign, but then don't necessarily pay any attention to. Right. And then it should include significant fines for independent expenditure committees who violate the ordinance, excuse me, and that could be used to fund enforcement and administration.
Yeah, I think the having the fines, significant fines, and using those to pay for any kind of administration and oversight would solve one of the problems that the supervisors could have in this, you know, I mean, everybody's tight on budgets, and so.
They're supposed to hold public hearings in October on the ordinance, and after they draft this ordinance, members of the league are going to take it around to all the cities and the towns in the county to see if we can get all of them to draft similar ordinances.
Did you have a couple of points for a voter who gets these things in the mail, what they might look for that would help them identify the fact that this is not really coming from the candidate, and this is
well, that's what's on. That's the message that's on here. That's the message that's on the.
I thought we might.
What about the role of the candidates with this? Could a candidate say, "Well, it wasn't me. I didn't do this"? Do you ask the candidates to repudiate the stuff that's going out in their name?
Well, that's part of the campaign, the Code of Fair Campaign Practices. They are supposed to do that.
They're supposed to do
The idea here is that, as one of the candidates said, well, you just can't say no to people, don't do that. But what we can do is we can create a climate where negative campaigning is no longer acceptable.
Right.
If we get a lot of elected officials who are willing to say this is not to happen in our town anymore, then we think that the independent expenditure committees may lose some of their clout, and that's what we're hoping for.
Or at least clean up their act, because people do have a right to form a group and influence who you vote for. I mean, it's freedom of speech, and we all are strongly supportive of that. It's the
but they shouldn't lie.
They shouldn't lie, and they shouldn't keep secret where the
they
money's
are.
coming
Yeah.
and who
That's
they
right.
are,
Right.
And who they are.
and who they are.
Listen, I was raised in Boston. When I was a little girl, the mayor was in prison governing this. So from my point of view, dirty campaigns are not at all a new thing. What is the distinction that you're making?
Well, they have been on a larger scale for a long time, but they haven't really invaded local politics here until the past couple of years. And this was such a prime example of independent expenditures committees
So it's
going
really
way out of
IEC
line.
is the new wrinkle.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
And the fact that they've come down to the local level.
See, because before, if the mayor was governing from the jail, you knew the mayor was governing from the jail. You didn't, it's not like somebody else was governing and you thought the mayor was governing from the jail. Right? Yeah. So we just like to know who's doing what and who's paying for it.
Right.
You know, maybe the next thing is just like opting out of catalogs, opt out of any.
Opt out of political
Opt
mail.
out of political mail.
You're right.
Okay, thanks, Elissa.
You're welcome.